I was drowning, not in water, but in a sea of my own meaningless obsessions. I'm 28, staring at my phone screen for 12 hours a day, scrolling through endless feeds, chasing likes, and feeling like my life was slipping through my fingers like sand. My relationships, crumbling, my job, a dead-end grind, my mental health, a complete train wreck. I was addicted to caring about everything, every notification, every opinion, every fleeting trend, and it was killing me. Then I stumbled across a book that hit me like a freight train. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. He wrote, "The desire for more positive experience is itself a negative experience. And paradoxically, the acceptance of one's negative experience is itself a positive experience." That line stopped me cold. It was like Manson reached into my brain and flipped a switch. I realized I was wasting my life caring about things that didn't matter, and it was time to stop. Let me take you back to 2023. I was living in a tiny apartment, surrounded by empty coffee cups and unopened bills. My days were a blur of Instagram reels, Twitter arguments, and binge-watching shows I didn't even like. I'd refresh my email every 10 minutes, hoping for some life-changing opportunity that never came. I cared so much about what people thought of me, my coworkers, my ex, even random strangers online, that I forgot who I was. I'd post a photo and obsess over the likes for hours. If it didn't hit 100, I'd delete it, convinced I was a failure. I was trapped in a cycle of validation, and it was suffocating. Manson's words echoed in my head. You and everyone you know are going to be dead soon. And in the short amount of time between here and there, you have a limited amount of FCKs to give. That hit hard. I was spending my limited FCKs on things that were dragging me down. I remember one night vividly. It was 2 a.m., and I was doom scrolling through news about some celebrity drama. My eyes burned, my head ached, and I felt this gnawing emptiness. I'd just lost a friend because I was too busy arguing online to show up for her birthday. My boss had called me out for missing deadlines, and I couldn't even argue. I was too distracted by my phone to focus. I was 28, but I felt like I was running out of time. That's when I picked up Manson's book again and read, "The only way to be comfortable with yourself is to be comfortable with your flaws." It was a gut punch. I wasn't just flawed, I was a mess. But instead of hiding from it, I decided to face it. I stopped caring about the perfect Instagram aesthetic. I stopped chasing approval from people who didn't even know me. I started saying no to things that didn't serve me, like staying up late for pointless debates or stressing over a coworker's snarky comment. That shift wasn't easy. I'd spent years building habits that kept me stuck. I'd check my phone first thing in the morning, letting notifications dictate my mood. I'd say yes to every social invite, even when I was exhausted because I was terrified of being left out. I'd obsess over my career, comparing myself to LinkedIn influencers who seemed to have it all together. But Manson's philosophy started to sink in. Caring less about the wrong things gave me room to care more about what actually mattered. I began to ask myself, what's worth my energy? For the first time, I started prioritizing my mental health, my real friendships, and my own goals. I wasn't perfect. I still slipped up, still got sucked into the occasional Twitter spiral, but I was waking up. I was done living for other people's approval. My life didn't magically transform overnight, but the cracks started to show. I'd spend evenings journaling instead of scrolling. I'd call my mom instead of refreshing my inbox. I even started running, not because some fitness guru told me to, but because it made me feel alive. I was beginning to see what Manson meant when he said, "You get to choose what to care about." I chose myself, and that choice changed everything. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was starting to thrive. But how did I actually make that change stick? How did I go from being a slave to my phone and other people's opinions to living a life that felt like mine? That's where the real work began. So there I was, staring at the wreckage of my life, finally ready to rebuild. Mark Manson's words from The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fecke were still ringing in my ears. The more you pursue feeling better all the time, the less satisfied you become. I'd been chasing highs, likes, promotions, validation, and it left me empty. But now I had a spark of clarity. I needed to stop caring about the noise and start caring about what actually mattered. The question was, how? How do you break free from habits that have defined you for years? How do you stop giving a fuck about the wrong things when the world is screaming at you to care? I figured it out through trial and error, and I'm going to walk you through the steps that changed my life. These aren't fluffy self-help tips. They're raw, practical moves that pulled me out of the abyss. First, I had to face the ugly truth. My phone was my master. I was averaging 12 hours of screen time a day. 12 hours. That's half my life, wasted on mindless scrolling. So step one was to break that addiction. I downloaded an app called Freedom to Block Social Media during work hours and set a hard rule: no phone in the bedroom. At first it felt like cutting off a limb. I'd reach for my phone out of habit, only to realize it was across the room. But after a week, I noticed something wild. I was sleeping better. My anxiety wasn't spiking first thing in the morning. I had time to think. Manson's book talks about choosing your struggles, and I realized I'd rather struggle with a moment of boredom than be a slave to my screen. Step two was about saying no without guilt. I used to say yes to everything. Drinks with coworkers I didn't even like. Projects. I had no time for even family drama that wasn't my business. I was terrified of letting people down. But Manson's line stuck with me. You have a limited amount of fucks to give. Very few, in fact. So I started practicing. I turned down a happy hour invite and spent the evening reading instead. I told my boss I couldn't take on an extra project. The first few times my stomach churned with guilt, but then I noticed people respected my boundaries. I had more energy for the things I actually cared about, like rebuilding friendships I'd neglected. Saying no became my superpower. Step three was finding my why. I'd been drifting through life, reacting to whatever came my way. Manson writes, happiness comes from solving problems. So I sat down and asked myself, what problems do I actually want to solve? For me, it was about creating something meaningful. I'd always wanted to start a side hustle, so I began freelancing as a graphic designer. I wasn't great at first, but I didn't care about being perfect anymore. I cared about showing up. Within 6 months, I was earning an extra $1,000 a month. That's not life-changing money, but it was proof I could build something on my own terms. Step 4 was cutting out toxic comparisons. Social media had me believing everyone else was living a better life, better vacations, better jobs, better bodies. Manson's take on this was brutal. The only thing that's really unique about you is your ability to suffer. Ouch. But it made sense. I was suffering because I was measuring my worth against curated feeds. So I unfollowed accounts that made me feel like garbage. I stopped checking LinkedIn every day to see who got promoted. Instead, I focused on my own progress. I tracked my wins, no matter how small. Finishing a book, hitting a new personal record on a run, or even just getting through a day without spiraling. The results? They were undeniable. By cutting my screen time to under 3 hours a day, I gained 60 hours a month. 60 hours to read, create, and live. I read 15 books in a year, something I hadn't done since college. My freelance gigs grew, and I saved $7,000 in a year, enough for a down payment on a better apartment. My friendships? Stronger than ever. I started hosting game nights, real face-to-face connection, no phones allowed. My mental health wasn't perfect, but I wasn't waking up with that crushing dread anymore. I was living proof of Manson's idea. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be better than you were. These steps weren't magic. They were choices. Choices to care less about the noise and more about my life. I'm not going to lie to you. Choosing to stop giving a f*** about the wrong things didn't make my life a fairy tale. I still have bad days. I still catch myself scrolling too long or stressing over someone's passive-aggressive comment. But here's the difference. I'm not a prisoner to those moments anymore. Mark Manson's words from The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Feek are like a compass for me now. Life is about solving problems, not about avoiding them. I've learned to pick my problems, to choose what's worth my energy, and to let go of the rest. And that shift, it's given me a life I didn't think was possible. I'm not chasing likes or approval anymore. I'm chasing meaning. And if I can do it, so can you. The question is, are you ready to take back control? This isn't about becoming someone new overnight. It's about small, deliberate choices that add up. Remember how I cut my screen time from 12 hours to 3? That freed up time to read 15 books and earn $7,000 from freelancing. Those weren't accidents. They were decisions. I decided to stop caring about what didn't matter, like perfect Instagram posts or other people's highlight reels. I decided to care about my mental health, my relationships, my goals. Manson put it best. Maturity is what happens when one learns to only give a FCK about what's truly fuck-worthy. So what's fuck-worthy to you? Maybe it's starting that side hustle you've been dreaming about. Maybe it's repairing a friendship you've let slip. Maybe it's just giving yourself permission to rest without guilt. Whatever it is, you've got to start now. Here's my challenge to you. Take one step today. Not tomorrow, not next week, today. Download that app to block your social media for a few hours. Say no to something that's draining you. Write down one thing you want to build in your life and take a tiny action toward it. I'm serious. Pause this video, grab a pen, and write it down. I'll wait. Done? Good. Now commit to it. You don't need to overhaul your life in a day. You just need to start. I went from being a stressed-out, phone-addicted mess to someone who's actually excited to wake up most days. If I can pull myself out of that hole, you can too. But you've got to choose it. If this story hit you, if you're ready to stop giving a FCK about the wrong things and start living for what matters, hit that subscribe button. Join me on this journey. We're figuring it out together. And drop a comment below. What's one thing you're going to stop caring about today? Is it social media, toxic people, that voice in your head telling you you're not enough? Let me know, because sharing it makes it real. And if you want more stories like this, raw, real, and packed with steps to change your life, ring that bell so you don't miss the next one. Life's too short to waste on things that don't matter. So stop giving a FK about the noise and start giving a fuck about you.